Previously on the Senna career. As Senna revs up to 5 red lights and away we go for the Russian Grand Prix as everybody is using the slipstream to good effect and Senna just slips through as there's a gap that appears and he moves up all the way into 2nd place. Yeah, you can see here following into the pits and going past Lewis Hamilton, maybe into the pit entry. What a daring move. We were actually under green flag conditions. We had to slow right down for the safety car and oh my word, Ricciardo and Raikkonen have completely wiped each other out. And he's squeezing the Spaniard out to the outside and he's on the option tyres and he just breezes around the outside. He has so much more grip and Fernando Alonso takes out the race victory. Senna in P2 and a double podium for McLaren, so not all bad. What's up guys and welcome to round number 10 of the F1 2014 Senna career. We're here today at the Circuit of the Americas for the United States Grand Prix. Yes guys, there's just 3 rounds left this season. We're jumping back into our McLaren as usual. And yeah, apologies for the lengthy delay between the Russian Grand Prix and the US Grand Prix, guys. I'm sure you all know how long one of these episodes takes to edit and record and what have you. And it's getting close to my exams at the moment, so yeah, I just haven't really had that much time. But if this video gets 170 likes, no, I'm setting a big target, but yeah, if we hit 170 likes, then I will release the Brazilian Grand Prix, a special Grand Prix, of course, Senna's home race. I'll release that on Saturday if this video does get to 170 likes. Without further ado, we'll get in now to qualifying. So with just 3 rounds left in the 2014 season, there were many drivers with seats up for grabs for next season, and Kamui Kobayashi was proving what he was made of. He'll line up in tomorrow's race 17th for Caterham. Jean-Eric Vergne scraped through Q1, managing to string together a lap that got him 16th, but Romain Grosjean had an awful session for Lotus and will line up on the grid 18th behind Kobayashi. But Senna managed to put together a pretty decent lap in qualifying, going purple through the 2nd sector and coming around the final corner in a 3rd sector that he'd been struggling on in practice, and that proved the same, although he did still manage to get through the session in 3rd. There are the eliminated drivers with, notably, Kamui Kobayashi there in 17th, but Esteban Gutierrez only managing 20th for Sauber. A pretty dismal Saturday was rounded off for Lotus with Pastor Maldonado only managing 16th in Q2, and Sergio Perez saw 11th place in the session in a mixed session for Force India. He was just eliminated, but his teammate Nico Hülkenberg comfortably made it through to Q3 in 8th place for the German driver. And Senna, in a session where he fitted the option tyres to try and get through to Q3, he went out very, very late in the session, banking on him being able to get a good time, which he managed to deliver. He managed to get through in 4th, and there are the eliminated drivers with Senna's teammate Jenson Button only managing 12th place, and there you can see Sutil and Maldonado in 15th and 16th. So going on to Q3 now, and this really is where the action commences, as I've said so many times. And it was Senna who was in fact setting the early pace around the Circuit of the Americas. You can see he got a bit of wheel spin out the final corner there, but he did manage to go quickest. And now you can see here Lewis Hamilton coming around the final corner. This is going to be his final lap of the session as we're coming to the close, and he gets pole position. So that is provisional pole for the Brit, but now we've got Daniel Ricciardo coming around the final 2 corners. What can he do for the Red Bull team, who haven't had much luck in qualifying this season? No pole positions for them thus far, and he managed to get 2nd on the grid, so a pretty good qualifying for Ricciardo. And that leaves Nico Rosberg, the championship rival of Senna and Hamilton, down in 3rd position for tomorrow's race. But Senna's been pushed all the way down to 7th in all of this carnage, but he goes purple through sector 1, and what can he do through the 2nd sector? And oh, he's lost time. He's lost quite a bit of time. He's 2/10 down in his personal best, so surely he's not going to be able to improve. But we come around the final corner now, and what is it? It is only 7th. He doesn't improve. So it is Lewis Hamilton and Daniel Ricciardo occupying the front row of the grid for tomorrow's US Grand Prix, with Nico Rosberg in 3rd and the other championship contender Ayrton Senna down in 7th position. So there you can see that although the McLaren team are reasonably happy with qualifying, it seems, because they are obviously pretty confident of Senna's race pace. But let's see how it all pans out for the Grand Prix.
Okay mate, we put in on the car for the race start. We expect the rain to ease off in around 15 to 20 minutes after the race start. Best of luck.
Yes, as you heard there, the start of the US Grand Prix is going to be a wet one, and as Senna rolls out of the garage on the intermediate tyres, we can see that Lewis Hamilton is on pole position. Ayrton Senna down in 7th place, and his teammate Jenson Button, as you heard in the qualifying report, he couldn't make it through to Q3 and will start in 12th. But as Senna knocks it down into the lead mix, he is staring towards the 5 red lights for the US Grand Prix, and away we go. Already flicking it up into 2nd gear and into 3rd, but he is helpless because he's got no traction off the start line. It is an awful start from the Brazilian. He's down into 11th position. His teammates had a great start as Senna gets a little bit too hot into turn 1 and hits the rear end of one of the Williams cars. I believe it was Felipe Massa, but he's only made up one more position up into 10th, and now he may go around the outside as we come into the S section. Yes, he's up into 8th position, passing Nico Hülkenberg among some other cars, but Massa is still ahead of him, and as he comes through the first sector you can see that the steering movements are very vigorous and he's finding it very, very difficult in these intermediate conditions. And although he only managed 7th position on the dry tyres, his qualifying pace hasn't really been there in the last few rounds particularly. But Senna now coming towards the turn 10, I believe, hairpin. It could be turn 9, it could be turn 10, it might even be turn 11, I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, we're now onto the main straight, and Senna is taking a look at Felipe Massa for 7th position, and the power of that McLaren is just getting his way past Felipe Massa, and Senna takes 7th position in the Grand Prix. But there you can see, I believe one of the Ferraris has lost its front wing, or it may be the Red Bull of Sebastian Vettel. Vettel is going very slowly, and Senna just slots up the inside, says thank you very much. But as we took a look in the rear view mirror there, you can see that Vettel does not have any front wing damage, so it must be one of the Ferraris. And as it's Kimi Raikkonen in 5th, that means that his teammate Fernando Alonso is in 4th, and he has become very separated from the top 3, so it must be Fernando Alonso with the front wing damage. And he's definitely holding up his teammate at the moment. Raikkonen trying to go down the inside, but that doesn't work. And the Raikkonen has in fact lost a position to Sebastian Vettel as well. So the Ferrari pit crew and the people on the Ferrari pit wall, they'll be going crazy at the moment because one of their drivers has lost their front wing in a moment of madness, and he has gone on to block his teammate Kimi Raikkonen. So not a great first lap of the Grand Prix for Ferrari after taking victory last time out in Russia. But you can see there that Senna was a full 5 seconds behind Nico Rosberg, and that gap had not closed up whatsoever on lap 5. The gap in fact increasing up to 5.4 seconds, and Senna was just really struggling with his rear tyres. They were way, you know, they were over the temperature, but the rain was still coming down, and as you can see, Vettel just goes down the inside. And Senna's tyre temperatures and just general feel of the tyres, he just wasn't really gripping into the racetrack at this stage of the race. But Vettel, yeah, you can see that he just powered past, and at the end of lap 5, the German moves up into P4, and he just gets so much more traction. And now, at this stage of the race, at the end of the first stint, you can just see that the rear tyres are just exploding at this stage of the race, and Senna's really struggling to keep the temperatures up as he goes off the curb there, and that is very bad for Senna. Team radio?
We know you're struggling, mate, but the rain is stopping in some places, so we want you to stay out.
While the McLaren team wants Senna to try and stay out and just sort of make this stint a bit longer. You can see there that Sebastian Vettel's in the pit lane at the moment. Senna has jumped him just about, but he is on a very worn set of intermediate tyres and struggling in the wet conditions, it has to be said. Not a circuit that Senna has particularly enjoyed this weekend, but come lap 10 he's hoping that maybe strategy will play into his hands, and just look at the wheel movements. They're very vigorous, as I said earlier on in the race. And at this stage of the race, Sebastian Vettel on fresher tyres, and although the rain has stopped at this stage of the race, the track is still wet, so Senna is just going to have to try and eke out this stint just a little bit more until the track is dry.
Box a slap, mate. Box. We'll flip the option tyres for you.
Yes, Senna believes, sorry, the McLaren team believe that the track is okay. Senna must have reported back to them saying that the track was just about ready, but just look at those rear tyres. They are pretty much brick red at this stage of the race. And Senna comes into his McLaren pit box, and they are fitting the option tyres, as they said over the team radio, and it's a 3.7 second stop for the McLaren boys. And Senna at this point, I'm sure, is just glad to get on a different set of tyres. The skies are blue overhead in Texas, the rain has stopped, and hopefully from now on for Senna, he's going to be able to make up a few more positions as he comes out in P8. But the tyres seem to be gripping in nicely. You can see on the temperature gauge that they are gripping into the racetrack at this stage. Maybe one lap too early for the option tyres or the dry tyres, but I think that's probably made up for the amount of time that he would have lost had he have had those worn intermediates on. And come the end of lap 12, he does indeed pass Valtteri Bottas, who is struggling on those intermediate tyres. I believe he came into the pits at the end of that lap. And Senna, in fact, got the benefit of DRS, so that could help him down this straight, as is that Sebastian Vettel coming out of the pit lane now. And Senna is in P5, and yes, that is Sebastian Vettel, so I believe Senna has made up a little bit of time at that stage of the race. But to be honest, in this middle stint, Senna was just trying to eke into that gap of Vettel, as he set a purple lap time on lap 30. And he's running in rich fuel mixture on the straights, but it's just not enough whatsoever to catch Vettel. And you can see there Senna does a 1:44.4 to go fastest. But you can just, you know, you're probably seeing a trend starting to develop now as Vettel goes and sets the fastest lap of the race. And he's just keeping that gap outside of DRS range. And once again, come the end of lap 15, it's 1.2 seconds still. And I'm sure the Red Bull guys are very, very happy with what Vettel is doing. And on lap 17, there's a back marker in the way, so Senna's hoping that this may just play into his hands as there's Kamui Kobayashi, and he nearly runs into him. As we take a look on the replay, Senna gets very, very racy with Kobayashi, who just sort of parks it on the apex. But anyway, at the end of lap 20, that is Sebastian Vettel in the pit lane, yes it is. And Senna just sort of found a little bit of second life in these tyres as he sets his fastest lap of the Grand Prix, nearly the fastest lap of the Grand Prix overall. But on lap 21 there is a safety car deployed. Wow, this could play into Senna's hands completely.
Safety car, there's been a crash behind, so keeps the time delta on screen and box the slap.
Yeah, we're down to 17 runners in the Grand Prix, and Senna has still got to make one more stop this afternoon, and that could not have played into his hands more nicely. And in a race where he's been fighting with Sebastian Vettel on and off, you know, there's been no real on-track battling or race, to be honest. Senna's either been caught like he was in the first stint, or just sort of keeping the gap constant as he did in the second stint. You can see there he's got +3 laps of fuel, so there's going to be no difficulty in getting to the end of this race fuel-wise. And is he going to get out ahead of Vettel? No, he isn't. But he is going to have those 1 lap fresher tyres, which could prove pivotal. Of course, there's no surprise that Vettel got out ahead, considering he was on the fresher tyres. But now, safety car in at the end of this lap.
The safety car will pull away at the end of the lap, up to mixed view for the remainder of the race, and go and get the Red Bulls.
While the team are pretty confident that Senna can go and take maybe a podium, and the Red Bulls are the 2 cars ahead, so I believe it goes Vettel and then Ricciardo and then the 2 Mercedes who Senna is battling in the World Drivers' Championship, and we should be going green now, but they are in fact still under safety car conditions, so it looks like I'm not quite sure where the green line is. Is it there? Yes, and now we are racing on lap 24 of the Grand Prix. Senna does get a much better exit than Sebastian Vettel, who was caught napping at the start. Senna is up into P4, and he must be jumping with joy inside the cockpit because he's been trying to chase down Vettel for pretty much the whole of the second stint, and then all of a sudden at the safety car restart it plays into his hands. And hoping that the back markers aren't going to get in his way, Senna is now in pursuit of Daniel Ricciardo in the other Red Bull. And on lap 27, there is just 1.5 laps left in this Grand Prix. Senna with +3 laps of fuel still, so he's definitely overcompensated with the fuel. Obviously, having the first half of the race in wet conditions didn't help whatsoever. As now Senna is maybe going to have a look at Ricciardo, who's obviously got that poor Renault engine in the back of his car. But Senna just took a little bit of a look. Is he going to regret that come the end of lap 28 and think, I wish I'd have been a bit more bold? And is he going to set a purple lap time? That's the question. Because Senna has got very fresh tyres at this stage of the race and just seems in the groove. No, he doesn't set the fastest lap. He's just outside of that. But he is within 1 second of Daniel Ricciardo, and we are now going to ride on board with the Brazilian for the whole of this final lap to see whether he can hunt down the Australian of Daniel Ricciardo and whether he is going to be on the podium at the end of today's race. And as we come through the sweeping left and right-handers, which is very much like Maggots and Beckett at Silverstone, we complete the first sector, and Senna has managed to close that gap down to under half a second, and he's running in rich mix and he's hitting every single apex. There has not been one cut or extension through that section of corners, and as now the drivers head downhill towards the hairpin, which sends them onto the main DRS straight on the circuit. Senna gets it turned in beautifully once again, down into Lee Mix, and then up into Rich, and this is surely going to be his chance to take a podium. And he's on the DRS, but is he just too far ahead? No, he is gaining and gaining. Is he going to be able to get past Ricciardo? Ricciardo slows, and is that the end of Daniel Ricciardo's race? He looked as if he was going very, very slowly, and look at it on the time map there. Yes, Daniel Ricciardo is out of the Grand Prix. He's not a championship contender, but still, the Red Bull team, they are going to be distraught because, well, he had it in his hands. Daniel Ricciardo, for the whole race, looks as if he had that final podium position under control. But Senna, as he's done a few times this season, has just sort of snatched it from Ricciardo. They did a lot of battling early on in the season. Bahrain, in fact, springs to mind. But at the end of it all, Ayrton Senna comes around the final corner to take yet another podium as Nico Rosberg wins the race. Senna goes over to the pit wall to thank his team. And what a race that was. Jenson Button, no points for him this afternoon. A poor race for the other McLaren driver, but Senna showing that there was definitely pace within that McLaren. And there you can see that Nico Rosberg took the win for Mercedes ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Sebastian Vettel in fourth, the only points finisher for Red Bull. And Valtteri Bottas and Felipe Massa were benefiters of the DNF for Ricciardo. And there you can see John-Eric Vergne just missing out on the points, and Daniel Ricciardo there in 12th position. Jenson Button was in fact lapped in the Grand Prix. But now as we go on to the driver standings, we can see that Senna is just about clinging on to second. And with 2 rounds to go, he is 14 points behind Lewis Hamilton. And of course, we've got double points in the final round at Abu Dhabi. So a win is worth 50 points around there. And there you can see that Mercedes have pretty much, well, they've managed to wrap up the Constructors' Championship, in fact, this weekend, or at least pretty much so anyway, and with McLaren Honda in 2nd position and Williams, in fact, in 3rd. But now, as we go to the podium celebrations, we can see that Senna has just about bagged himself a podium after being pretty much off the pace all weekend, so make sure you leave a like down below if you enjoyed this video, and I'll leave the last word to Stopmark 1998.
Come on, Ayrton!